What is going on, everybody? My name is David and welcome to my YouTube channel. And in today's video, we'll be doing a lab on how to configure a router as a DHCP server, and we're mixing in Inter-Vlans as well. So basically, DHCP stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, and what DHCP does is, instead of you going to the actual laptops or servers or whatnot, for example, we come over here to this desktop, and instead of us just manually typing in IP addresses, we can go ahead, PCs can go ahead and get IP addresses from the DHCP server remotely. Well, not remotely, let me take that back. They can get it back. They can get IP addresses from the DHCP server automatically, instead of you going into the laptop, like I said earlier, and manually enter in IP addresses and subnet mask and default gateways and the DNS servers and blah blah blah. So basically, doing that on two PCs right here for Vlan 25 and the two for Vlan 50 and the two for Vlan 75, that's not bad. But imagine if we had a larger subnet and we had 200 PCs in each VLAN. So let's say it all together was 600 PCs. That's time consuming when it comes to statically assigning IP addresses to laptops or whatnot. So that's why we have DHCP server. So as you can see, I'll go into each one of these access layer switches so I can show you all the configurations. So starting with switch floor 1. Let me show the topology again. So we're just pretending that this is the first floor right here. This section right here is the first floor. This section down here is the second floor. And then this section right here is the third floor. So let's go into this switch so I can show you all the configuration right quick. So we go to enable to go into privilege mode. And we'll do a show interface trunk. This is the command that you will use to see the VLANs traversing on the trunk. Because as you can see, port 24 on this switch is indeed trunking. The native VLAN is 1 and encapsulation is 802.1q. And VLANs 1 and 25 again are traversing port 24, going from this port right here to the core switch. And that interface as well is fast Ethernet 24. This one right here is fast Ethernet 23 going to the core switch, and this is port fast Ethernet 0/22 that is going to the core switch. So I just want to show you all the configuration. So we go back to enable and we'll do a show interface trunk just to see if Vlan 50 is traversing that trunk of fast Ethernet 0/23, and it is. As we can see, port fast Ethernet 0/23, VLANs 1 and 50 are traversing that trunk interface going to the core switch. And now we'll do the same for switch 3 or floor 3, whatever you guys want to call it. So we'll come over here, enable, and do a show interface trunk. This is the command that you would use just to see the VLANs traversing the trunk. And as we have it, VLANs 1 and VLAN 75 is traversing fast Ethernet 0/22. And let me show you all this right quick. Show Vlan Brief. As you can see, this is the help desk VLAN. I named it, and I just, for fun, I just put fast Ethernet 0/1 through 12 into Vlan 75. So if I decided to connect more PCs from 3 through 12, they will fall under Vlan 75. But let's go to the core switch and let's see if VLANs 25, VLANs 50, and VLANs 75 is traversing this interface right here. So we'll go to this switch, and this is gig 0/2, by the way. that's going from the core switch to the router. Okay, show interface trunk. And we can see on the fast Ethernet ports, we see on 22, VLANs 1 and 75, fast Ethernet 0/23, 1 and 50, VLANs, those two VLANs, and then fast Ethernet 0/24, VLANs 1 and VLAN 25. And as you can see, the trunk mode is on. The encapsulation is 802.1q for all three of those interfaces, and the status of those ports are trunking. And the native VLANs for that is VLANs 1 on those ports. So we'll do a show Vlan Brief, and as you can see, we have the three VLANs right there. VLAN 25 for the Human Resources Department, VLAN 50 for the Sales Department, and VLAN 75 for the Help Desk Department. Now, for us to really get the Inter-Vlans on its way, the Inter-Vlan is nothing but a layer 3 VLAN. So what I mean by that is you have your layer 2 VLANs, which is, for example, these two PCs within that VLAN 25, VLAN 50, and VLAN 75. Now the Inter-Vlan is layer 3 because you assign IP addresses to those VLANs, to that VLAN. You give it a default gateway and whatnot. That's the default gateway that those VLANs will use to communicate with other VLANs or to other hosts outside of its VLAN. So long story short, the Inter-Vlan is layer 3. It's dealing with IP addresses. So what we would do is we'll look at the interfaces. Show IP interface brief. And 02 is down. And the reason why it's down is because we have not configured this router yet. So with that being said, let's go ahead and configure this router. And I'll show you all what I mean if it's your first time trying to grasp Inter-Vlans. I'll show you all what I mean by that, of what I said earlier. So we'll go to the command line interface, enable conft host name. We'll name this router a generic router 1. I do a no IP domain lookup, and what I would do is go to interface gig 0/2. Now, because the VLANs need to traverse this interface right here of gigabit 0/2, we do not need to do anything as far as configuring gigabit interface 0/2. And the reason for that is because we want to make the configurations under the sub interface mode. So the only thing you want to do with this interface is just bring it up. So we'll do a no shutdown. And that interface is now up. And as you can see, where it was red earlier, we see that the light turned amber. So this port on the switch is coming up. It's going through spanning tree, listen and learn states or whatnot. And I'll talk about spanning tree in a later video. But for now, just know that the interface is coming up. As a matter of fact, if we come to the switch, you see how before it was down. As a matter of fact, we got a syslog message saying that the line protocol on interface gigabit 0/2 is up, as you can see, as well as the interface itself being up. But let's run that command again just to see if, let's do it again. And there we have it. See, gigabit 0/2, gigabit Ethernet interface 0/2 is in the up state. And now the light is green, so we're all good to go. So now what we want to do is we want to exit out of here, and we'll do this. Interface, this is the command right here. Interface gig 0/2.25. Now you can choose any number you want, but even Cisco recommends, you don't have to, but even Cisco recommends that whatever the VLAN is, basically match that number, that sub interface number with the VLAN, because it's easy when it comes to troubleshooting. You don't want to have VLAN 25 and then let's just say, for example, we'll use 178. That doesn't make any sense. So I mean, you could do what you want, but to keep things clean and make it easier for you when it comes to troubleshooting, just give it the same VLAN ID number as you have on your layer 2. So your layer 2 VLAN. So we'll give this VLAN 25, and as you can see, the sub interface of gig 0/2.25 is up. Next, we have to do this, because the port right here is running encapsulation .1Q on it by default on this 2960 switch. We'll go ahead and do the same thing. Now this has to match, otherwise this won't work at all. I mean, as far as the VLANs traversing that sub interface. So we go into encapsulation and we'll do .1Q and we'll give it that VLAN number, which is 25. And then here's the Inter-Vlan part I was telling you guys about. Let me minimize this a little bit, but I'll make it large enough for you all to see. I'll slide this over some, slide this over more. And as you can see, this is the IP address we're going to use. But instead of using .1 as I normally would use for the default gateway, what we would do is give it this one IP address 172.16.25, and I put that 25 to represent VLAN 25 .1 255.255.255.0. And what we would do is, just to kind of speed things up, we'll go back to interface gig 0/2.25, but instead of that, we will give it .50. And you see that sub interface is up. So what we'll do is encapsulation .1Q VLAN 50. And I actually show you context sensitive help. You see it says VLANs 1 through 4094, the VLAN ID. So we're giving it VLAN ID 50, IP address 172.16.50.1. I actually have to go back, and I did say 254. 255.255.255.0. So we'll go back to this interface, and what we'll do is no IP address that, but then we'll go back and change this to 254. Now that looks better. Now we're cooking. Okay, so now what we would do is go back here, change that to 75 for VLAN 75. See that interface is up. We give the IP address. You know what? Instead of typing that in, we'll come over here, change this to a 7. And before we do that, matter of fact, let me actually do this first. And then we'll come to the IP address and change this to a 7. And I will save this. Now let's do a show IP route. As you can see, we have a route for VLAN 25 right here, which is connected, and the broadcast of /32 is local. We have VLANs 50 network as a connected route on this router, and VLAN 75 a connected route on this router. So the Inter-Vlans are done at this point. And matter of fact, let's come back over here. No, we'll go back. We'll stay in the router. So now what we'll do is we will configure this router as a DHCP server. So what we would do is we will come into global config mode where I'm at right now, and we do IP DHCP pool, and we give it the name of HR. right? We will give it default. No, we'll give it the network of 172.16.25.0 question mark sub. You got to put the subnet, which is 255.255.255.0. Okay, so we got the network. Now we have to give it the default route. Default router, which is excuse me, 172.16.25, and the default gateway we're going to give this is that right here. Where is that? Where is it? Right there. We'll use that IP address. .254. DNS server, we're not going to worry about that. So the only thing we're focused on is the name, the network, and the default router. Okay, next, we'll get out of here. I have a tendency just to do that, and then we'll create the DHCP pool, or the DHCP pool of addresses for the sales VLAN. So what we'll do is go to IP DHCP pool. We'll name it sales network 172.16.50.0 with a 255.255.255.0 mask. Okay, maybe. Oh, I put a comma right there. Okay, so just let me know. There we go, and we will use default router as 172.16.25.254. All right. Now we have one more to do. IP DHCP pool, and we'll name this help desk for VLAN 75. We'll give it a network of 172. I don't know why I keep hitting that comma. .16.75.0 255.255.255.0, and we'll give it a default router or default gateway or whatnot of, you guessed it, 172.16.75.254. All right, now we done. Now we can do a do, copy, run, start. That's to save the config. And yes, we do want to save it. Now, let's see. Show IP DHCP binding. Let me see. Go to another command. We'll go to pool. And with this, let me actually make this bigger for you all. And as you can see, under the show IP DHCP pool, we see the pool right here is human resources. The total addresses is 254. The IP addresses we can use is the current index of 172.16.25.1. This is the range. And matter of fact, before I do anything, let me exclude these addresses right quick, because I do not want DHCP to send, you know, it's rare, but it's possible for it to happen where automatically it will send a computer or or host or whatnot the IP address of the actual default gateway, and that is not what we want. So what we would do is go back to global config mode. So we do IP DHCP excluded. If I can type excluded addresses, and we'll use 172.16.25.254. We'll change that to 50, and we'll change that to 75. That way, can no host use these 3 IP addresses? That's basically what it means, to make a long story short. And of course, when we come back up here, if we change it back, remember, it didn't have any excluded addresses for the VLAN 25 or HR, the sales, or the help desk. But let's run that same command again, see what happens. And as we can see, is 3 excluded addresses. And basically, to make a long story short, 2.54 would not be used at all. All right, here's the moment of truth. Matter of fact, let me come to this switch right here. Enable show interface trunk. All right, and as you can see, the interface gig 02 that's facing the router, that's connecting to the router from the core switch, all 4 VLANs are being traversed through this trunk, which is basically that is what you want to see. That's what you want to see. So now we'll go to this laptop, IP address, and you see it's a static. It doesn't have no IP address or anything. Let's see if I click DHCP. Let's see if it grabs an IP address by itself. There we have it. And of course the DNS server is blank because I didn't put anything for the DNS server. I could have just used the Google server of 8.8.8.8. But for this lab, I really don't need a DNS server right now. So let's go to this one and see what happens. We'll come to desktop, IP config. I made this a little wider, a little bigger. All right. So we'll click DHCP. And there we have it. It has an IP address of 172.16.25.2. So we'll do this on all to these next 4 PCs. We'll come over here and I'll make this quick. Desktop IP, DHCP server. It should grab an IP address, and it does. It grabbed the first available IP address. We'll minimize that. We'll come over to this laptop and we'll do the same thing. Desktop IP configuration, DHCP server. And we can see it's grabbing IP addresses by itself versus me actually going in and statically assigning them. They're grabbing IP addresses by themselves through DHCP. Let's see. And there we have it. All right. And the last one. Desktop IP configuration. I'm about to say IP communicate. I'm thinking of AT&T's IP communicators. That's telecom type stuff right there. But anyways, DHCP. And there we have it. They all have IP addresses. Now let's see if this PC right here can ping this host over here, the user 2. So we'll come back on the we'll close this out. Go to command prompt. I'll make this bigger. And the IP address was ping 172.16.25.2. That was the IP address that user 2 was given. And I can ping it. That's great. Now let's see if we can actually ping the other side. Because I know these IP addresses by memory, I just hit the up arrow, change 50, and see if we can ping that one. And there we have it. And the request timeout came from op. So basically, what this PC did when it sent out an op broadcast is basically broadcasted saying, because it's layer 2 op, it basically was sending out a broadcast saying, hey, does anybody have the MAC address for this IP address? And it went to its default gateway and it got the IP address of that MAC address. Yes, of that MAC address. So let's see. Ping it, and then it's good. Now let's see if we can ping 75.2 this time. Or 75.1, doesn't matter. And it's gonna go through our broadcast again. So it's on a timeout. And there we go. Full communication between all the members of the VLANs, basically. I don't have to go through everyone, because if this PC can talk to this PC and one of these pieces over here, all of these computers can communicate with each other. And that is pretty much it when it comes to Interface-Vlans and DHCP. Interface-Vlan, again, is nothing but layer 3. It's basically you're assigning a network of IP address, the network, to that VLAN. And the DHCP, all it does is basically, to make a long story short, is automatically, the DHCP server is automatically assigning IP addresses to hosts. And that would be it with the interface, with the Inter-Vlans and configuring DHCP. And we use the router as the DHCP server. If you have any questions regarding this lab or anything regarding DHCP or Inter-Vlans, better known as switch virtual interfaces, feel free to drop a comment in the box below. If you have any questions, I will answer those questions that you may have. So just leave a question down below. Or you can always, if you have any questions, you can send me a message on Instagram at networkguy_Dave or on Twitter at networkguy_Dave. If you have any questions regarding DHCP or Inter-Vlans, better known as switch virtual interfaces, because that's basically what it is at the end of the day. And yeah. So if this video was informative for you, I would like for you to leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and if you like the content that you've seen thus far. And I have more content coming soon. And the next video, what I would do is, I may add upon this lab. If not, I may just design a completely new lab, and then we can talk about DHCP, but using DHCP relay agents. That would be the next video. So yeah, guys, I had a lot of fun with this lab. And again, like I said, if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to me. If anybody know me, I'm a friendly person, so just feel free to reach out to me. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end this video off, basically, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.